Welcome to the First 40 Sports Show with the Goon Squad. It's Icewater and Puma holding it down for this episode. And it's 95 days until the Rihanna halftime show. You know, we're eagerly anticipating that. 95 days, baby, just over 3 months.
Let's go, man. Let's go. You know, I got my backup singer behind me. She ready to go.
Woo. Oh, yeah.
One of my biggest fans, bro.
Oh, yeah. Like my Native Americans would say, hola. Okay. Let's go into the story that everybody's been talking about since we've been off the air last week, Kyrie Irving. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I watched the documentary twice, and I did not see anything that really kind of is anti-Semitic, things of that sort. Basically, it's talking about the 12 tribes and where they went, and that the original Jews or Israelites or Hebrew Israelites were originally Black. And so when Kyrie put that up, he did not say anything, but he got a lot of punishment, backlash, 5-game suspension, which Jaylen Brown, who is the president of the NBA PA, says we're going to appeal this because the list they gave him of requirements for him to come back was ridiculous. And I just thought, I don't agree with everything Kyrie Irving says in past things that he did. You know that's well documented on this show. Mm-hmm. But in this particular instance, I felt like watching that documentary twice. It's a 3.5-hour documentary. Those of you who are chiming in without watching the documentary, you're just way off. You need to watch the documentary, then chime in. But I didn't see anything for him to apologize for. He did apologize, but it just seems like they're trying to attack his dignity now and make him crawl as a Black man, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's to a point where they want to show him who's the boss. And I said to you earlier off air that to me, this is a group of people, owners or millionaires or billionaires, that they have to bring this back to the forefront. And I think Kyrie Irving's biggest issue has been he's had some what they would call questionable behavior in the past. And this is one area where it's really almost for a lot of people taboo. You know, you can't say anything a lot of times about when it comes to Jewish faith, which I get it. People are frustrated by it or mad about it. And then this is another way where it was put out that you definitely can't say anything about the Holocaust, right? And I'm just saying, I'm not saying that one way or the other you should be able to criticize or really talk about it, because certain subjects are taboo. You're not allowed to say that, particularly on certain levels. But I think even deeper than that is the factor that Kyrie represents the NBA. They pay him. For the longest time, he's been able to say some things. He's been able to, for instance, do things like, for instance, not take the vaccine for COVID, and they put him out there or whatever they did, and they just kind of said he's chosen not to do that, and he was able to bring a lot of light to himself or to whatever he was trying to do, and it didn't have a good light shined on that was shining on the NBA. And again, other things he's done, other things he may have said, has been questionable by some, and particularly with the media. But when you look at the whole stance, as you mentioned about the documentary, he posted something. And after he posted something that offended people, he came back and apologized. Mm-hmm. He didn't say that he agreed with everything in the documentary. One would ask, why did you post it then? And his answer was, I posted it because he believed it had some truth to it in regards to the Hebrews. Notice the title, the Hebrews, who a lot of people will call the original Jews. And I just said something. The original Jews who had the issues, how people didn't understand that, and it brought to light so many other things. But the whole point of it is Kyrie, this organization, this group is showing the NBA, National Basketball Association, is showing people that, granted, you may not think we're tough as the NFL, but certain things we're going to take a stand on. And we're going to do that. And we're going to show you, and I don't like to say, because you know the book I love is $40 Million Slaves. I don't want to even use the connotation of so lightly with slavery, so I'm not going to use that word. But I will say he is a highly paid employee that is going to be, they're going to try to teach a serious lesson about when you speak about certain subjects or have certain behavior that they deem to be unsuitable and unacceptable. And I think that's where he's at right now. But, and I think I mentioned this last week, is the fact, one of the things I needed to see, and I think it's going to happen. I know he's already talked to the commissioner, Kyrie, that is. But one of the things I wanted to see, because it's the way things are supposed to go, is when you saw the National Basketball Players Association is talking about appealing. That's the process, whether you like it or not. That's what's supposed to happen. And to have Jaylen Brown step up and mention that they plan to appeal it speaks volumes. Just because somebody says something, you don't like somebody, doesn't mean that you just throw them under the bus, even if it's Kyrie Irving. A lot of people have done a lot worse and said a lot of other things. But my whole premise of that is you got to let it play out. You got to let it play out. And some of the things that they are asking him to do or saying he has to do before he comes back, you got to question. Because basically you're saying he's racist. And you're basically saying when it comes to, he's made some comments that perhaps he didn't say based on the documentary.
Yeah. One of the things that I want people to really look at, again, watch the documentary. Also look up the definition of Semitic. Read your Bibles. A lot of you have been preached to, but you're not reading your Bibles or where the Hebrews came from and the 12 tribes that the film talks about. And all you talking heads on sports media who look like me, I don't want to hear it. Just be quiet. We already know you bought and sold. So when they ask you to chime in on it, and I don't even listen to it anymore. You already bought and sold, and I'm not even going to mention their names, who turned their back on, who kind of sold out, but they got some of those folks that were wearing dresses and on TNT. Charles, Shaq, got you wearing dresses. So you're already bought and sold as far as I'm concerned. But do your research, watch the video, because I'm trying to figure out, watching the video twice, how the Jewish community made this film about them. When it's almost like in society, when you tell the truth, you get punished for it. And like I said, I don't always agree on the tactics of Kyrie Irving, things of that sort, but he put the post up, he said nothing. He said nothing. So, and it's like you're trying to use him as an example. And I get it. You don't want black men to know who they are. You don't want people to know the truth. I get it. Because you're afraid that once we find out the truth, a lot of things will change, and they will. You can't do anything about that. But I implore folks, watch the documentary. I try to, matter of fact, in order to do more research, and I think I talked to you about this offline, I try to get the book by Louis Farrakhan, because we've been talking about this for a long time, of the secret relationship between blacks and Jews. And I went on Amazon to get some of my books. I usually get my books from Amazon. I went on Amazon to get that particular book. And I told you that book costs $2,500 on Amazon. Go check it out. The other thing, the point I'm going to make, turn it back over to you, is that I didn't see anybody going after Jeff Bezos. It's on Amazon. It's on the Prime Video platform. You can go and rent it, just like I did, and watch it, but nobody's coming after him. Know why? Because he's a white male with a lot of money that you can't really touch. But you want to drag a African-American through the mud. He's Native American and African-American, for trying to learn about him, learn a little bit more about himself. And you want him to apologize. How about apologize to African-Americans for what they went through and some of the things that this particular community were involved in, as far as slavery and all that other in the slave trade. So here are some of the things that they're trying to make him do. They're trying to apologize and condemn the movie. I wouldn't do that, because you butthurt because they told the truth about the movie, and they backed it up with documentation. A $500,000, $500,000 donation to anti hate causes. How about reparations for us? I'm going to break it down. I don't care about what people think about what I'm going to say right now. Sensitivity training, anti-Semitic training, Go look up who are the Semitic people. Meeting with the ADL and Jewish leaders. Meeting with Joe, I forget this, I can't pronounce his name, Say, to demonstrate understanding. He has to go through all this stuff. How about understanding African Americans and the plight of Africans in this country? How about doing that? How about an equal exchange to understand each other's community and where each other stands instead of making this man and making him example? To me, it's almost like what, and I hate to quote the justice that's in the Supreme Court now, a high tech lynching. Your thoughts, man?
Yeah, and the really thing that bothers you is because when you look at it, one of the things they mentioned is the reason why they're so up in arms about it is because it has these anti-Semitic tropes. For instance, one of the things I guess it talks about supposedly, I haven't seen it yet, but allegedly talks about how the Holocaust was overstated, you know, in that regard, how a lot of people maybe have been overstating the Holocaust. I would never say anything like that because it is to those individuals who have family and whatnot. It means what it means, the same way that African Americans deal with slavery.
They didn't mention the Holocaust in the documentary.
But
I'm trying to figure out why they're trying to make it about them when it wasn't about them.
But again, it comes down to that point where these in certain individuals, I'm gonna say these people because I'm not gonna say that, certain individuals or groups feel a certain kind of way. So they pile on the way that they do. But what's really bizarre about this for me is if the truth comes about the 12 tribes, right? And you think about the Hebrews and who the Hebrews were and where they originated from and what they look like and things of that nature. A lot of things that are connected when you talk about slavery. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to focus on that. That's truths or things nobody wants to talk about because that means you're going to have to go back and maybe perhaps change history or acknowledge it. I told you before, one of the biggest fabrications, and just in my opinion, I live in a city that was named after Christopher Columbus. For the longest time I can remember, and I'm an older guy now, we were always taught that Christopher Columbus founded America. I live in a city named after Christopher Columbus. If a Native American, American Indian, wherever you want to call them, that were on the beach or wherever, saying when Columbus rode up on his ships, that they were on the land, how can you discover it? That is a truth that nobody, or a falsehood, if you want to, depend on how you look at it, that no one wanted to touch because for years it was in our school books. It was all the way across many things in history. And just recently, and I never thought as an older man, I would ever see the day where you would be taking down Christopher Columbus statues. We even had replicas of the 3 ships here in the city where I live on the water.
Wow.
So that's how deep it was. But nobody wanted to even deal with that because we've been pushing this falsehood for so long. If you do that, that means you have to recognize somebody else that was there first. And people don't get mad at that. I'm sorry about that if you're mad, but you got to do the research. You got to do the history. It's just what it is. But yet you go back after a man. If you don't like him, that's fine. But you go after a man that simply put up a post. Simply put up a post, and now everybody's hurt. Okay, you have to do that, be that way. But at least give him a fair trial if you're going to do that. And that's what the NBA is going to should do. And this is the time where you talked about people coming out in droves. They need to come out in droves about this. And if you don't like Kyrie Irving or whatever, but at least come to the understanding. And I thank Jaylen Brown for stepping up immediately and saying, look, we're going to ask for some investigation. We're going to ask for, we're going to appeal it because like him or not, that's just certain things. Everybody deserves proper, proper investigation. Everybody deserves their day in court, if you will, or what have you. They deserve a fair trial instead of just, but again, because the money's involved, they want to teach him a lesson and he put his butt in line so they can say, see, we see how we handle ours.
Yeah, and so nobody else will step up and try to tell the truth or their truth. And so my thing is, again, watch the documentary. Watch the documentary. Don't allow the news to sway you to think when they label somebody that that's the truth, because this is part of a playbook that's been used since the 40s, a playbook to stamp somebody anti-Semitic, and then to get people all all lathered up and heated behind that person. So let's stop that. Let's look. Let's all do some research. Let's all do some soul searching, and let's all look for truth instead of pushing false narratives for generation after generation after generation. A lot of the truth is coming out. So you either deal with it or you leave it alone. Let's go to the next story with the Colts, and this story kind of made me mad too, because I watch Saturday or Jeff Saturday on ESPN sometimes, and you have all these coaches that could have been put in that particular position with the Indiana Colts, the Indianapolis Colts. And this goes back, we're dealing with this early, because every year when we get to the end of the year, I always say the Rooney Rule is a joke. It's a joke. It doesn't mean anything. Owners are going to do what they want to do. So it's really interesting to me that Jeff Saturday gets put in as head coach, no coaching experience, had a good run with the Indianapolis Colts, him and Peyton Manning, but now he's being put into the head coaching role. And I just want to see this dumpster fire right now when this happens, and how they're going to explain this, Ice.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you fire Frank Wright, right? And then you bring in Jeff Saturday, who's a NFL Hall of Famer, who, that's who he is. And they loved him to death because he was Peyton Manning's guy, right? He was the guy that protected Peyton Manning. And what I find very unique and I find it somewhat ironic is the factor that you pull him off NFL studio, right? He was an analyst for ESPN. And you pull him off and say, hey, we need some help. We need you to come over and be the head coach. And I'm sure he even said, what the hell? But he got the call from Irsay. And Irsay is powerful. Irsay, look, we just need to do whatever to do. Don't worry about it. We'll keep it moving. What was really bizarre is, one makes you wonder is, are they tanking?
Yeah. But I also thought, Ice, that he wasn't their first choice. I'm pretty sure he went to Peyton Manning first and said, hey, we need some help. We need to sell tickets. We need some help. And Peyton Manning was like, hey, I got a cushy job here at the network. I ain't going nowhere near a football field or whatever. And I think Jeff Saturday was the second choice. I don't have any proof of that, but I got to think that he wasn't the first choice.
Right. But even with Peyton Manning knows where he's at. He doesn't have to prove anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you wanted to be in coaching, you could have been in coaching a long time ago. But I think, like you said, to the point, he has a cushy situation. He's doing well. He's all over the place. He's even doing co-hosting country music awards. So, Peyton Manning's all over the place, and he's pushing the hell out of his brand. I'm not mad at that. Between that, hosting college quiz shows, I mean, what? Peyton Manning is all over the place, buddy. And hey, I'm not going to knock his hustle. But with Saturday, he probably was begged to do it. What was even more bizarre is the factor that he's bringing in Parks Frazier, who was the pass game specialist, right? And he only drew up game plans when Frank Wright told him to do some things. He kind of scripted things for practices and whatnot. He has no experience whatsoever calling plays. He will be calling plays on the next game.
Yeah.
He's 30 years old, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but he has no experience doing that. So again, maybe Mr. Irsay has decided this is how we're going to roll. Either you with it or you're not. And then it's early way to say tanking, because I think I know somebody that I really want, and I'm going to do what I got to do. It's my modern day tanking. You don't like it, so damn be it. And we're going to get the top pick, and I know who I want, and I'm going to get him. And it's right there for you. Maybe allegedly, maybe I'm looking at something and I don't know what I'm talking about. But to have a brand new, a person who's inexperienced as a head coach, I don't care if he's an NFL top player. It's like when Magic Johnson became an NBA coach. You had to wonder about it.
Yeah.
You had to wonder, was Magic? Okay, it's just Saturday, I get it. But how are you going to, it's a difference between coaching. And then you bring in another young man, 30 years old, that's going to call your plays. Wow.
This should be interesting, in certain circles we know of, some people hit the blunt and then they start making decisions. And you got to think that something's not right here. Something's not right here. I don't know if you took a drink and say, hey, screw it, let's go with this. I don't know. But it's like, if you really want to win, you put the right people in the right place, and you put experienced people that know how to do things to get your football team turned around. And I feel bad for Matt Ryan too, because I think he should have retired, but now he's with a team where it's in disarray, and he's not going to get back to the Super Bowl anytime soon unless he starts coaching football. Instead of
Can I say
going,
one other thing? Let me say
yeah,
one other thing.
yeah,
If I'm Matt Ryan, I'm like, with what just transpired, I don't even want to go in the game.
no, nope, nope.
I'd be like, you know what? You got that young guy playing. Unless he get hurt, even if he get hurt, put the other guy in.
Yeah, put the third
I
string
wouldn't
in.
want to, because individuals having lack of experience, not really no understanding. It's just different, man.
Yeah, you got to understand the defense. You got to understand when the blitz, what to call when blitzes are coming. You got a young quarterback who may not be able to audible when things go wrong.
Hey, there are men that have been great coordinators for years, but they have not been able to step up and handle the responsibility of being head coaches. You had to have a dynamite staff. And with the coach, if that was the case, why would they be struggling in the first place?
Yeah.
So Jeff Saturday is taking on a monumental task. It's just hard. You can play the game, and I'm not on that level, but I've heard that you have to really focus on your position, let alone trying to cover the whole team. So it's just a new experience. Maybe Jeff Saturday has some experience that I don't know of from on the high school ranks or whatever, because it can happen. You might know he might be such a wizard that he just never decided to do it. But if you look at the odds of that, don't really look good for him in favor. He might fool us all. He might come out, put everybody, oh yeah, I know what's going on. He has that kind of mindset. He's been practicing, been watching different people over the years. He's just waiting for his opportunity. It can happen. But the odds on that really transpiring, was particularly with a 30-year-old offensive play caller and a young quarterback, right now from the outside looking in, and it's all prediction, trying to give a understanding of what we think might happen, but we don't know. So we'll find out soon enough.
Well, next story, Dusty Baker finally gets his. And the Houston Astros won in 6 games. I predicted it was going to be 7 games, but they handled their business in the last game. I'm so happy for Dusty Baker. Been in the game for a long time, and finally he can say that he's a world champion as a coach. He was as a player, but as a coach. And they're calling Dusty Baker kind of like the Forrest Gump of sports, because every kind of major kind of baseball kind of event, he's been there. He was there when Hank Aaron hit his home run. He was there during the earthquake in San Francisco. He was there in like different pivotal places with the Dodgers. And here he is again, and he's going to be coaching or managing another year. Your thoughts about the World Series and Dusty Baker?
Yeah, I'm going to throw that, add a little something else to that Forrest Gump folklore, if you will, for Dusty Baker. If you remember, in Game 4, the Astros their pitching staff combined for a no-hitter.
Mm-hmm.
In Game 4, Dusty Baker was was coaching the Cincinnati Reds when a no-hitter, the last no-hitter was pitched in the World Series.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's been on both ends of it. So he talked about that. But amazing from Dusty Baker. I'm so happy for him from the standpoint of being only the 3rd African-American man to actually be a manager in the World Series, along with Dave Roberts and Cito Gaston. Major plug to him. He's just a hell of a dude, man. Dusty's been on this trail a long time. I was happy to see him win. Take nothing away from Philadelphia. They were probably one of the most scrappiest teams at time. I was really nervous for them, the Astros, that is, because I was like, wow, they keep hitting these home runs. The pitching staff for the Astros has really been dominant and dynamic. Early on, struggled. And there was one game, I think, that the Phillies hit 5 home runs. And it just seemed as if they had the energy.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem like Houston had the energy. And you're saying to yourself, oh my God, I'm saying, what? I don't know how they're going to win this. But then something happened when they're able to keep moving forward and tie the series up. And then they said, okay, we're going back to Houston. Even before then, the switch turned on. and their pitching staff got hot. They became the staff we've been watching all year, but the staff that Dusty Baker always said they could be. And when you think about it from that standpoint, from games 4, 5, and 6, they limited Philadelphia to 3 runs. 3 runs in 3 games.
Yeah.
They got hot. 2 of those runs were on solo shots. And to have a no-hitter in game 4, they were on fire. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about this too. I didn't really understand what was going on or really recognize this young man early, but I did start watching a little bit. And that's Jeremy Pena, the MVP of the World Series.
Yeah, the rookie.
The rookie batted 400. You talk about a future, and if he can stay healthy, man, I saw him, and he had no fear. Mm-hmm. And he made some hella fire plays in the field too. I was like, how do you do that as a rookie? And they asked him a question when they interviewed him, and he said, well, last year he was hurt quite a bit, right? And he got a chance to watch what was going on. And then when he did get in, he was able to, they made some offseason moves, and it was his turn. And he said, by the time I got up there, I had to be ready. I couldn't be a rookie anymore. And by sitting out and being injured, he had the opportunity to really get right and jump right into the mainstream situation. And he did that, and wow. Dusty Baker, I love this because Dusty Baker's thumbprint is all over this. They play happy, they're crazy, they're nasty, they're scrappy. We all thought this was going to be about Justin Verlander, right?
Right.
But what we found out is there's so many other guys on that team that really came forward and were making it happen for the Astros. So they really got it done. It's very interesting. But again, kudos to Dusty. I've been calling Dusty out for the last 3 damn years, and you finally got it, Dusty. You might make me get an Astro hat. Where my trash can at?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this World Series. It was every game was really intense. It was intense, and even though it was Saturday and it was college football, I found myself turning to the baseball game because I wanted to find out whether or not the Astros can pull it through. I'm a Yankee fan, but I got to tip my hat to Dusty. He came in a situation where the Houston Astros were in disarray, settled them down, and got them back to this point. So much success to him. Hopefully not next year. Hopefully my Yankees can get it together. I don't know for next year, but kudos to the Houston Astros. They did it the right way. And what can you say now? What can you say now? You can't say they cheating, all that other stuff, unless they found something we didn't see. But they did it the right way, and congratulations to them. Let's go to college football, man. The playoff rankings and the AP poll are pretty much the same. We're going to go to the AP poll. I feel they set up Tennessee last week, put them at number 1, and Georgia just beat them down. I mean, it was a really defensive beatdown by Georgia. They're number 1, followed by Ohio State. Michigan's number 3. TCU is number 4. Tennessee, outside looking in, at number 5, followed by Oregon. LSU with a big win over Alabama, followed by USC at number 8, followed by UCLA at number 9. Alabama is number 10. They fall 4 spots. And followed by Ole Miss and Clemson, who got clipped by Notre Dame. I got to tip my hat to the Notre Dame coach because I did not see that coming, Ice.
I told you better leave Marcus Freeman alone. He comes from big stock, bro. He has those Ohio roots, Buckeye also too. But he's just a good dude, and he's smart, and guys want to play for him. And Notre Dame has some talent. He just kind of had to work on it. A lot of it has come down to straight effort and schemes, right? We know how strategies and game plans go a long way, and it comes to styles. And one thing he has these guys going believing that they can play. What I find ironic is this reminded me of something of the old Notre Dame team sometimes on offense, because of the factor that back in the day, like right now, one of their primary, or maybe their best receiver is a tight end, right? So you look at the quarterback, you're like, man, look at that big tight end catching all those passes. And back in the day, I'm gonna take you guys on a history lesson. But back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, this is back in the late 70s. If I might be around 1977. But there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Montana, and around in the 70s, and his favorite receiver was a tight end by the name of Ken McAfee, and he made that guy look great all the time. When you watch the old Notre Dame highlights when they used to replay them on Sundays, you go back and look up Ken McAfee. You turn around, I think his number was 87. Every time you turn around, watch the game was on the line. You saw Montana rolling out. He wasn't looking for a wide receiver. He was looking for Ken McAfee. So it's ironic that the Irish now are using their tight end to that same capacity and same level and having so much success right now. So I told you to give Marcus Freeman a few games. Let him get comfortable over there. I know he lost to Ohio State and they had another bad loss, but I told you, don't throw him away yet. Let him get comfortable. And that was a hell of a win for any coach to beat the number 4 team in the nation. I think it was a program major saving, but also program elite win for Marcus Freeman.
It gets him in bowl eligibility, so that's a good thing. Also, Florida State 25, they're bowl eligible. 24 is Washington, Kansas State 23, UCF 22, Illinois dropped 7 slots down to 21. Notre Dame jumps up 10 slots to number 20. And Liberty at 19 with the 8-1 record. Texas, who they're going to play TCU on Saturday, they move up 8 spots. You got North Carolina State 17, Tulane 16, North Carolina 15, Penn State 14, and you have Utah at 13. And of course, I said earlier, Clemson is at number 12. I'm looking forward to some games this week. I want to see if Georgia kind of cools down against Mississippi State. Of course, you have TCU and Texas. We mentioned that before. Let's see if Tennessee can rebound against Missouri because they're still on the outside. But I think if the game is going to be in the playoffs now, Ohio State and Michigan, and whoever gets bounced out of that, you might find Tennessee or Oregon stepping up in that spot. Coach Kelly gets his LSU Tigers up to that number 8 spot. So there's a lot of things that can happen from here to the end of the season. But what games are you looking forward to seeing next week?
Yeah, there's 2 things going on. I want to see Tulane, who's number 17, versus number 22, Central Florida, right? Because the winner of that can move up real quick, at least get to a decent bowl game. The loser is like, wow, we go right back down to being kicked out of the top 20. Of course, Alabama versus Ole Miss, just because the matchup of the coaches, and Alabama's sitting in a very bizarre ranking right now, and Ole Miss is sitting at number 11 saying, hey, we want our opportunity. This might be our opportunity. So the question is Alabama, when Nick Saban going to rise up? Wouldn't it be bizarre? And I'm not saying it because where I live, but what if Alabama was to lose 3 games in the season?
Yeah.
Who would ever think of that, ever, when you just had the returning Heisman Trophy winner? But we'll see what happens. So that will be an interesting game. Another game I'm looking forward to is LSU and Arkansas. So Arkansas just got whipped hard by Liberty, right? So LSU had a major program win under Mr. Kelly over Alabama in overtime. So now coming back, do you get too comfortable? Because Arkansas is capable. They're very capable. So do you get real comfortable after you just had one of the biggest wins in your program's history in a long time, besides the Joe Burrow championship? And then you get comfortable, and Arkansas comes for you. They could do something like that. The last game, too, is the factor that Kansas had a major win last week, right? And now they are playing Baylor. Another test. Baylor's not a bad team either. So those are some of the games I'm looking forward to, because they're not on everybody's radar like that, but they're going to. It should be very interesting.
All right. Questions from the squad. Ice, you got a question?
Yeah. Excuse me. I guess my question to you is, are you surprised when you look at the college football rankings? Are you surprised the way it's set up now? because the teams that you just knew were going to be there. I mean, you know, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, maybe, but now you're seeing TCU, right? Teams like that right there. Are you surprised that you see Clemson and Alabama so far down the pecking order right now as we're getting real close to the end, if you will?
Yes and no. And I'll say no because, this is what I think Coach Saban was a little bit worried about, and Dabo was a little bit worried about, that there was going to be more parity in football with the NILs and things of that sort, and that the good players, they weren't going to be able to get the good players anymore or stockpile them like they used to. So, yes, I am surprised that they didn't really kind of meet the challenge and making sure that their teams were ready for this onslaught and more parity and more competition. Because I've always said this, Alabama and Clemson are, to me, two of the top teams who had real easy schedules outside of their conference schedules than any other team. And they were on top for the last, 9-10 years. And now you see the parity in football where other players aren't just going to Clemson, aren't just going to Alabama, or some of the usual suspects are going to other programs. And these other schools, these coaches, they're taking on the talent challenge, and they're taking these schools to task. Now, I know Brian Kelly won against LSU, but I expect them to have a letdown before the end of the season. I think they were up for that game. They were playing at home against Alabama, and they were supposed to win that game. I think that's what he said when he wanted to come in and coach, that they were going to beat Alabama. Okay, now we're going to see whether or not are you up to the challenge to get any higher or beat some of the teams that are in front of you to maybe land a spot in the playoffs, because it's there for you. I don't expect all these teams to just go undefeated in the playoffs the way they're set up now. So yes and no. I thought they would play a little harder to stay on top so that they can be beaten in the playoffs, but it just seems like parity and the NILs and transferred students are catching up.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But even looking at how the way that Notre Dame defeated Clemson, right? I think what's key is your quarterback play has to be dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have, they usually have, like with Alabama, they usually have some top-notch wide receiver that are what we call straight burners. They get out there and you look at them and see how quick they are, and they go and you say, wow, this guy's just ready for the league. You really don't see that a lot this year. Texas had Alabama on the ropes for a while till they lost their starting quarterback. So that's another game they could have possibly lost. And the way that Notre Dame just played with so much vigor and so much hype, and they were just with so much confidence, particularly at home, it was going to take a major effort from Clemson to win. And sometimes your energy, even if you have better players, if your energy's not there, it's not allowed you to do what you need to do, and the crowd gets you hyped up. And Dabo Swinney, as much as he wanted to, didn't have an answer. Didn't have an answer for Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, you know how their fans have been hungry for a long time, waiting for
definitely.
anything to show promise, and particularly with this year with the early struggles. Now that Marcus Freeman seems to have righted the ship. So with that being said, they're really excited. Again, when your leading receiver is a tight end, I find that funny. First thing I thought about when I started watching that, I was like, man, I'm old. I'm looking at Montana versus Ken McAfee. I was like, look at those guys.
Also, who are number on this 87 with the San Francisco 49ers? Is it like he loves that number at the tight end position?
Oh, yeah.
Clark.
We won't even talk about that, though. That's another.
Oh, no, that's a sore spot. Yeah. The catch.
I'm still trying to figure out how two people allowed that man to catch that ball. Was that Everson Walls? Come on, bro.
I don't know, but that catch was spectacular. I mean, I think John Madden called that too, and Summerall called that. First, my question is Jacques Vaughn. Udoka doesn't get the job with the Brooklyn Nets, but they call on Kansas great, and he played in the NBA also, Jacques Vaughn, to coach the Brooklyn Nets. My question is this guy getting into a funky situation with this team?
Perhaps, but he's been there, right? He's there. So he's been an assistant. He knows those guys. Udoka would have been the sexy pick. I think too, I'm not sure if this is the case, but the way that it was going to be put out, like, and I think maybe the NBA or the Nets were kind of looking at it differently too, even though they probably really wanted Udoka, right? He's supposed to be suspended for a year.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden does he get to come off and just go, oh, I'm coaching him? And I'm not sure how long Jacque Vaughn's contract is and what he's going to do, but I would not be surprised. I know they give people contracts and they revoke them or they pay the people and they move on. But this may not be, unless he makes something different, changes, this may not be the last you hear of Udoka in context and connection with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
Because maybe they wait a year and go, look, if Kyrie's going to be acting this way too, why would you bring him in at this certain kind of time? Yeah. So we just play this out, and who knows what's going to happen next year. We'll have a brand new team. Maybe we circle back around and find that out, what's going on. Jacque Vaughn is very capable of being a head coach. I think he's shown you that in the past where he's won some games with certain teams. Is whether or not the players rally around him, he's familiar to them. They know who he is. And I think they're going to try to just make the best do out of what the current situation. Because you try to bring it in now with all of the chaos, and particularly with the current Kyrie situation just kind of blew up, you're going to ask a brand new person to come in and try to clean that up that has no idea what the hell is going on. Yeah, that'd be hard to do.
Yeah, I heard there's two things with this with me. I heard some of the some sport reporters say that they were blaming Kyrie for why Udoka's not coming in, and I'm like, come on, man, don't do that. I mean, you can't blame everything on that guy. And the other thing is that we've seen this before where you have black coaches come in, they straighten out, stabilize the situation, they deserve the job, but at the end of the day, they don't get the job. And so I would hate for that to happen to Jacque Vaughn, who's earned his way to be a head coach. Please have some understanding of the situation he's taken over. And if he stabilizes it and get your team to at least to the playoffs, a lower seed in the playoffs, don't forget about what he did during the season to get the team to that particular point, and then hire another pick that may not mesh with the team. I'm not sure if they're going to keep Kyrie. It almost seems like they're trying to use this as an excuse to get rid of Kyrie. But whatever the case, you may be losing KD and Kyrie, and you're going to have to rebuild your whole team. So keep that in consideration. If everything kind of falls out, that this guy stepped in when the fire is hot, and he's taking up responsibility, and he's taking the task full on. Another question?
Are you surprised by? Seems like a lot of things are happening. As far as I told you about the boxing skills, we're talking about that too. A lot of things are falling in place. Are you surprised that things are coming together now? As far as boxing, we might get some big fights in boxing in next year.
Yes, pleasantly surprised, because I know we're going to talk about this in our boxing show, but the WBC are putting down the gauntlet and said these are mandatory fights we want to see. And I think what's happening is the good fights are too far and few in between. And so if they're going to make money and keep these superstars in the public's eye and on their minds, they got to start having regular fights, at least once a month, having a big fight to get pay-per-view dollars and to keep these guys interested. Because when you look at the UFC, every month there's a big time fight, and these folks are becoming household names. And I think it will drown out some of the foolishness we've been seeing with the Paul brothers, to be honest. And I'm glad the WBC has stepped up and said, listen, we got to have big time fights. You are the WBC says you're mandatory to fight this fight. So I think Ruiz and Wilder. I just saw Thurman and Spence. There's another one with Caleb Plant and I think Benavidez, in the hopes that they're going to potentially fight Canelo. So I like this. I like that they're forcing these fights and saying, listen, this is what the people want to see. Quit hemming and hawing. Let's get it on. Your take.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. There are some dynamite fights. We keep hearing people talking about boxing is dying. I don't agree with that. When we get into our segment, I'm going to also go over some things that might be coming down the pike and just saying how dynamic this could be. Even talk to the point about when everybody had been waiting on that big fight between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence to take place this year. The fact that it's not taking place this year is going to make it even a bigger fight. So it's going to be very exciting too. But yeah, I think, we're in November now. We got a few decent fights coming up in December. But if they get this together for next year, man, the spring and the summers, might have people flying back out to Vegas to, get those tickets and get those hotel situations set up again too.
My last question is, based on what the Raiders have done this year, they were a playoff team last year. Based on what they've done this year, do you think the coach is trying to make Carr look bad so he can get another coach, another quarterback after the season? Or has the team really quit on this particular coach because they see they're not going anywhere? Or is this team just this bad?
I don't think the coach has any room to try to make Carr look bad. Because I mean, the Raiders are quick they'll say, yeah, look at John Gruden. They'll give you a 3, 5 year, 10-year contract and they'll tear it up. So that's the Al Davis way or the Davis family way. So I don't think the coach is trying to make the quarterback look bad. I think he really wants to win. But I just don't know if it's in Josh McDaniels' DNA. We talk about the struggles of several Patriot Bill Belichick underlings, the guys that were under him and the staff and that were assistant coaches and also coordinators that have struggled. People talk about Mike Vrabel might be the only one that's really moving forward and making a difference. But Josh McDaniels has been around for a long time, watching Bill Belichick running the offense of the Patriot way. But for some reason or another, this is the second time that he had this opportunity. The first time he got it when he was real young on the NFL anyway, and he's not able to do anything. So I think I think the team is just not really good. But I think it comes down to coaching. I think it comes down to understanding that you got to get guys to buy in. And maybe because the lackadaisical philosophy or the attitude that the coaches presented, guys are not buying into what they should, because they do have talent over there with the Raiders. But every Sunday you got to come out and play. And the question is right now, and I talked to you before about this, where's the leadership? I mean, I know Mr. Adams wants to win bad, and I know he's probably cussing people out, telling them, I don't play this way. Even when I was losing, at least I made it to the NFC Championship round or close to it. But I didn't come here not to make the playoffs. I don't care how much money you give me.
Something that Carr said during an interview after the game, he said, we got to play more than 30 minutes to win. And people need to be in a mindset that you can't win a football game in 30 minutes, which kind of, to me, pointed to the coaching and the attitude and the culture there now that is a little bit different from last year. Because last year, again, the Las Vegas Raiders were a playoff team, and we were looking for a lot of things out of this team. A lot of the team didn't change. They got parts that should improve them, but I think when it's all said and done, bruh, I think it's the coaching. I really do think it's the coaching, and I think Carr said that, and I wouldn't be surprised they try to ship him out of there. But he gave me an insight like, hey, we played a great first half, and then all of a sudden we can't put it together in the last 30 minutes. It's not the players. It's the attitude towards the coaching and what they're calling and how they're setting up their team to win. So when he said that gave me a real eyeful of what he's seeing. And he's saying, hey, this is not how you win football games. And you would expect more from a Josh McDaniels coming from the Patriots to not get, walked down like that in the game, because they have full control of the game. Then you lose to Jacksonville. That should be the tipping point to your season to say, we got to do better. Last second thought.
Yeah, my last second thought is going to be focused on Dusty Baker. Years ago when I was a child, that was a long time ago, when I used to play baseball, and I love baseball, and I knew a lot of the African-American players. I knew a lot of them from, when Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record. I was really excited about that. I knew just watching them growing up and playing the game, I knew what it was like. And as we progress forward to watching the Derek Jeters of the world, watching them play as well, I'm like, okay, wow, this is amazing. But on and on and on, from the great Ozzie Smith, right, the Wizard, even guys that were from the Big Red Machine, the Joe Morgans of the world, the Cesar Geronimo's of the world, these top-notch baseball players, even the Louis Tiants with his, when he turns and spins and throws his eyes up in there. Baseball was such a great game because of the style. And one of my favorite players of all time, even Nolan Ryan. And watching Dusty Baker play with the likes of Al Oliver, Willie Stargell, just some great names over the years that he competed against. Knowing that he became a manager and tried for the longest time because he's been a great teacher, he finally was able to reach the pinnacle of all managers to win the World Series. And he did it at a time when you mentioned where the Houston Astros were called cheaters, and they were not producing the way that many people thought that their talent, they were not living up to the level of play that their talent called for. The amount of money that's been spent with these superstars and whatnot too. So they made a few changes and they brought in Dusty Baker. And to see him win that title because the guys loved playing for him was amazing. It made me want to watch baseball again. I haven't done it like that in a long time, where I literally was watching baseball and really involved in it and watching the pitches and watching these guys really connect. And I told you about the rookie winning it and whatnot, and getting really familiar with the team, and also reconnected with Justin Verlander. But the one thing I would say, congratulations, Dusty, again. Happy to see it. I just never thought it would be a World Series I'd be watching where no African Americans played.
To my people of color and folks who look like me in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia, we got to do better. And I'm speaking of not sports, but voting. We got to do better. Now, when it's a party, we all up in the place. When it's a sporting event and tailgating, you can't keep us from that. But when you're given the right to vote and you fail to do that, and you let people control your fate, it's a sad state of affairs. And think about all the people who fought for it, for you, so you have the opportunity to do this. It's a sad state of affairs. When you have an ex-football player who has no clue on how to lead anything, and he's still hanging on, trying to win a Senate race. That's really sad. When Abrams can't get in as governor, who would be best for you, it's really sad that there's certain folks who will vote against their best interests because they don't look like people who look like me. Sad. That's our show. We'll see you next week.